Most people think their evening routine starts at night, but it doesn't. By the time you're brushing your teeth, putting your pajamas on, climbing into bed, your brain has already spent hours deciding whether it needs to stay alert or whether it can begin recovering. And that's why so many people struggle to unwind, not because they don't have an evening routine, but because their brain never receives a clear signal that the day was actually ending. So they carry their meetings, their conversations, their decisions, their unfinished tasks, their worries straight into the night, and they wonder why they feel exhausted but can't switch off, why they wake up tired, why recovery feels so much harder, why stress seems to follow them everywhere. The problem isn't that you're doing too little. The problem is your brain may never be transitioning out of that performance mode. And once you understand how that transition works, everything changes, because a great evening routine isn't really about sleep. It's about teaching your brain how to finish the day so it can prepare for tomorrow. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. Welcome, I'm Heike Fallon. I'm the founder of Expand Health and the creator of the NeuroHP Method, and I combine neuroscience, sports therapy, and personal performance coaching to help people like you who don't want to be limited optimize health and personal performance for longevity. Over 30 years, I've studied the brain, the body, and the connection, and today I want to share the anatomy of a perfect evening routine. But before we go into it, make sure you grab my free PDF. There's a link in the description below. Check it out. And now let me ask you one simple question. When does your morning routine start? Most people know the answer immediately. You wake up, the alarm goes off, your feet hit the ground. Very simple, right? But here's the other question. When does your evening routine start? Most people have no idea. And that is interesting because recovery doesn't start when you get into bed. It starts when your brain recognizes that the demands of the day are changing. And the problem is most people never create that transition. Work ends, but attention doesn't. The meetings end, but thinking doesn't. The day ends on the calendar, but it never really ends inside your brain. And that may be one of the biggest reasons people are struggling with recovery, because before you can recover, your brain needs to know what it is recovering from, right? And that's where we need to begin. Most people are taught how to start, right? How to start school, how to start work, projects, workouts, start your diet, start your goals. Very few people are taught how to finish. And that matters because the brain depends on completion. Not perfection, but completion. So think about a theater performance, right? Everybody knows when the show is over, right? The curtains close, the lights change, the music stops, lights go on, right? The audience leaves, and there's a clear signal that one experience has ended right there and then. Imagine none of that happens, right? The actors keep acting, the lights stay kind of bright, the music continues. Nobody knows whether the show actually finished. And that is how many people live their evenings. So if finishing the day is so important, why is it so difficult? Why can someone leave work at 5 o'clock and still be thinking about work at 10 o'clock? The answer is attention. Throughout the day, your attention is pulled in hundreds of different directions. Conversations, decisions, emails, projects, responsibilities, problem solving, and every one of those things requires resources. Most people think they are tired because they worked hard. Often they're really tired because their brain has been processing information all day long. Monitoring, evaluating, deciding, prioritizing, switching focus, and that creates cognitive load. Cognitive load is simply the amount of information the brain is actively managing. The more information the brain is managing, the harder it becomes to disengage. And this is especially true for leaders, business owners, particularly parents, high performers, not because their lives are necessarily harder, but because their days often require more decision, and decisions are expensive. Every decision requires energy. What should I do? What matters most? What can wait? What problems need attention? One decision is easy. 100 decisions are not. By evening, many people are not physically working anymore, but mentally they're still processing the entire day. And here's what becomes super important. The brain doesn't stay engaged because everything is unfinished. It stays engaged because too many things still feel unresolved. Those are not the same things. You will never finish everything. Forget that. It's not going to happen. There will always be another task, another responsibility, another opportunity, another demand. The goal is not completion. The goal is clarity. Because clarity reduces the mental load. Uncertainty increases the mental load. So when the brain knows where things belong, it can stop allocating so much attention to them. And that's where a great evening routine really begins. Not by helping you sleep better, but by helping your brain carry less. And before you can improve that, you need to identify something most people have never considered. You know exactly when your day starts, but you do not know when recovery starts. And that's what we're going to figure out right now. So for the next week, I want you to become a little bit more curious. At the end of each day, ask yourself one simple question. When did my evening actually begin? Not when you got into bed, not when you brushed teeth, not when you turned the lights off, okay? Ask yourself, when did I stop adding demands and started reducing them? Maybe it happened when you left work, right? Maybe it happened when you closed that laptop. Maybe it happened when dinner started. Maybe it happened when you sat down with your family. Or maybe you discover something totally different and surprising. Whatever it be, I don't know. Maybe the day rolled also straight into the evening and then straight into bedtime. Maybe, I don't know, just kind of pay attention. Try not to change anything, just try to notice, because awareness always comes before change. And what you're looking for is your threshold, right? The moment your brain first receives the signal that the day is actually changing. Once you find that threshold, you can strengthen it. You can create a more intentional transition. And that single shift often changes more than people expect, because the evening doesn't begin when the clock says so. It begins when your brain recognizes that it's no longer needs to engage in that same level. Here's a little hint. You might want to try also an evening without the phone and see how that might be different for you, because the phones kind of keep us too busy and engaged. So they kind of screw us up. So kind of pay attention. That is a goal. And then start kind of identifying it. And then you're going to start slowly implementing changes. Here's also another thing that happened to a lot of people. Even after they identify their evening threshold, many still struggle to fully disconnect. Not because their day was busy, but because they have too much to do. Because of how they review their day. Think about what happens when most people finally slow down. The moment the activities stop, evaluation begins, right? The brain keeps going, right? Did I do enough? Did I get enough done? What should I have done better? What did I forget? What still needs attention? And before you know it, the evening becomes a performance review, not recovery, evaluation. So now here's the problem. The brain learns from repetition. And if every evening ends with self-criticism, the brain begins to associate the end of the day with more pressure and not completion. Pressure. And over time, many people develop a habit that they don't even notice. They become experts in tracking gaps. What is missing? What's unfinished? what is not good enough, or where have I failed, and they become terrible at recognizing progress. Not because they aren't making progress, right? Because they stopped looking for it. I fell into that trap. This is especially common for leaders, business owners, high achievers, and people who hold themselves to very high standards. And the very trait that helps them succeed during the day often make recovery more difficult at night. Because achievement requires improvement, but recovery requires acceptance. And achievement asks, what can I do better? And recovery really asks, what happened today? Those are very different questions, and both matter. But if improvement is the only lens you use, the day never feels complete. There's always another goal, another project, another opportunity, another way to do better. The finish line keeps moving, and eventually the nervous system never receives evidence that enough happened for today. And that's where our second exercise comes in, because before the brain can move forward, it needs a place to put kind of today. It needs to sort today, right? And I call this exercise close the loop. So before you, go to bed, take out a sheet of the paper, and it could be way before you go to bed. Create 4 columns. 1 completed, 1 kind of part, I call it part, tomorrow, and wins. And then start with complete. Write down anything that is done, anything that no longer needs your attention. Then move to part. And these are things that are waiting, right? Waiting for information, waiting for somebody else to do it, waiting for timing, not yours to solve tonight, very important. And then move on to tomorrow, the column tomorrow. These are the things that deserve attention, just not right now. They need it tomorrow, right? And then finally, write down your wins. Write down 3 things you did well today. Not necessarily big, extraordinary kind of achievements, not like major accomplishments, simple evidence that you showed up. Maybe you exercised, maybe you had a really difficult conversation, maybe you helped someone, maybe you followed through on some commitment that you had, maybe you took care of yourself. 3 wins, then stop. No more planning, no revising, no adding more tasks, okay? You're done. Because the purpose of this exercise is not productivity, the purpose is perspective. Most people finish the day asking what is left. This exercise asks what happened, and then creates a very different experience, because progress looks different when you actually take time to notice it. And that's important, right? And most people think they remember their day objectively, but they don't. The brain is selective. It doesn't record everything kind of equally, right? It prioritizes what receives attention. Think about how many things happened today. Hundreds, maybe thousands, conversation, experiences, thoughts, decisions, moments. Yet tonight, only a small percentage of those experiences will stand out. And the question is, which ones? For many people, the answer is easy. It's the mistakes, the awkward conversations you may have had, the thing you forgot, the projects that didn't finish. And the brain naturally pays more attention to problems than to positive experiences. That helps humans to survive. And the brain's sole purpose is to keep us alive. But it can create an incomplete picture of reality, right? Because every day contains more than problems. Every day contains moments of progress, moments of connection, moments of enjoyment, moments that make life better. But if attention never lands on them, the brain often moves right past them. You don't even pay attention to them. And that's important, because what the brain notices, it strengthens. So it gets better at it. What it ignores, it weakens. Which means the final moment of the day can influence what the brain becomes better at noticing tomorrow. And that brings us to the third exercise. This one is called the gratitude scan. Before bed again, or again, where it fits in your evening routine, ask yourself one simple question. What made today better? That's it. What made today better? You can choose up to 3 things, not more than that. Maybe it was a conversation, maybe a workout, maybe the time you spent outside, a good meal, a good laugh, like quiet moment that you had. Maybe someone helped you. Now, here's the important part. Don't just list them out, right? Experience them. That's very important for gratitude practice. Take a few moments with each one of it. Recall it, see it, feel it, and notice what happens inside your body as you remember them, because the brain changes more through experience than information. Reading a list is information. Experiencing appreciation is a completely different level. And when you do that, you end the day with a very different message. Not what went wrong, but what made today better. After everything we discussed, you may be wondering, well, what does this actually look like in real life, right? A perfect evening routine is not a checklist. It's a sequence that helps your brain and body understand that the demands of the day are decreasing, right? And while everyone's routine will look a little different, there are several elements that consistently help support recovery. One, as we talked about, create that transition. First, create a clear transition, a moment that separates the day from the evening. Maybe it's closing that laptop, changing the clothes, going for a walk, preparing dinner. The activities matter less than the actual signal. So the brain needs evidence that one phase of the day is ending and another one is beginning. Second, reduce stimulation. The amount of input coming in, not all at once. Do it like gradually, like less work, less problem solving, less information, less scrolling, as I said, less decision making. Your brain has been processing information all day. The evening should not feel like a second workday. Third, you should absolutely support your circadian rhythm and do that intentionally with light. Light is one of the strongest signals the brain receives. During the day, we want bright light, especially in the morning. During the evening, we want opposite. Dimmer the environments, less overhead lights, less intense stimulus, not because light is bad, because the brain uses light to determine what time it is. And timing matters for recovery. Number 4 that you should have, give yourself time for digestion. Avoid turning dinner into these super late events. Unless you're going really late to bed, your body can digest while you sleep, but recovery is easier when digestion is not competing with sleep. So you don't need the perfect dinner time, but give yourself a few hours between dinner and bedtime, and that can be making a huge difference. Not because of the calories, because of timing of information, and timing influences physiology. Number 5, create a certain closure, right? I showed you the exercise, close the loop, so don't carry the entire day into tomorrow. Use the exercise we discussed and with a completed part tomorrow and wins, and give things a place. The brain handles clarity far better than ambiguity. And number 6, end with appreciation. Like I said, you want to feel the appreciation. Ask yourself what made today better, not because gratitude is something trending, because attention shapes experience, and what you repeatedly teach your brain to notice, it becomes better at finding. Notice something. There is no perfect evening routine, at least not one that works for everyone, because your brain is not my brain, your lifestyle is not my lifestyle, your stressors, responsibility, preferences, and experiences are completely different than mine. That's why the goal isn't to copy someone else's routine. The goal is to discover what helps your system transition, recover, and prepare for tomorrow. For some people, an evening walk works, wonderful. For others, it's reading, stretching, music, quiet conversation creates that better transition. You got to kind of figure out what works for you. Some people notice they recover better with early dinners. Others realize Their biggest challenge is evening screen time, and others discover they need more closure around unfinished tasks. So the evening routine isn't something you build, blindly and follow. It's something you learn, you pay attention to, you experiment with, you observe and ask, what helps my brain to let go of today? What helps my body to recover? What leaves me feeling better tomorrow morning? Because the real goal is not creating a perfect routine. The goal is to understand your own system. And once you understand your system, you can create an evening routine that is sustainable, effective, and uniquely yours. And that's where long-term success actually comes from. Not perfection. It's awareness, consistency, and learning what works best for you. If you enjoyed this video and think there's someone else that would love this as well, please share it. Subscribe to my channel, as I'm always releasing new brain-based videos and content for any topic related to health, performance, and longevity. And I'm Heike Fallon, and I'm so happy you were here watching all the way to the end. I'll see you in the next episode.